He moved to Iron River to be near Terry and to take advantage of its access to the great outdoors. So despite their 20-year age difference, Chris and Kelly became fast friends. The two of them had a lot in common. They were both transplants to the area. They were both outgoing and sociable. They often took their breaks at work together, and coworkers started to notice. They had this rapport and friendship, and people started to gossip, of course, that the two of them may have been having an affair. Now, whether or not it's because of this alleged affair or not, Terry and Chris's relationship started to cool off. But they remained friends and they kept in touch. And Chris began planning a move, not close by, but to Asheville, North Carolina, after he accepted a job there. So, I'm not sure how that led to this next part, but I wasn't there. On the morning of October 14th, 2014, Chris texts Terry. She says that the two of them had decided that they wanted to try to patch things up, so they were going to spend Thanksgiving together. Unfortunately, this would be the last time that anyone would hear from Chris. Terry kind of waits around, and after she doesn't hear from him for 10 days, she reports him missing to the Iron River Police Department. When they go to his house, it is completely tousled. Terry says this is very uncharacteristic of Chris, and they could not find his cell phone, and his car wasn't there. Police actually locate his car outside of town, and in it there is a sticky note with directions to a house in Old Caspian, which is described as an old mining community that has seen better days. And unfortunately, the house that he was going to was the home of Kelly and Jason Cochran. So police drive out and they talk to the Cochrans. Kelly said she'd been in touch with Chris around the time that he'd last been heard from, but not since then. Iron River Police Sergeant Cindy Barrett said that she found Kelly friendly, outgoing, and not the least bit nervous, but that Jason was pretty emotionless, and he stood off to the side just kind of observing. Barrett said, "I became suspicious, but I had nothing to base my suspicions on." Coworkers of Chris and Kelly told the police of their rumored romance. So the police decide that they need to bring Jason and Kelly in for a formal interview. Kelly admits Jason over, and they determined that he had died from an overdose. Kelly informed him that he had been doing heroin because of his back pain. However, when news of Jason's death reached his friends, they were like, no, he wouldn't do anything harder than smoke pot. They just really thought it was really, really out of character for Jason. Kelly held a memorial service for Jason just days later and claimed it was the hardest thing that she would ever have to deal with. She then pawned most of the things that she owned and fled Indiana on April 26th without telling any of her family where she was going. So now the police kind of have their little antennae up. After the Hobart medical examiner did Jason's autopsy, and they found opiates, morphine, and codeine in his body, they also found out that he didn't, in fact, die of an overdose. He had died from asphyxiation. So the manner of his death has changed from overdose to homicide. And now they have a murderer to find. Detective Jeremy Ogden attended the autopsy after being called in from the FBI, who had gotten an anonymous tip that the Cochrans were wanted for a crime in Michigan. After the medical examiner found that Jason had died from strangulation, Ogden took a closer look at Kelly, and he consulted with Laura Frezzo about her case in Michigan. And what followed from here was like the most extreme game of cat and mouse between Ogden and Kelly, as this detective hatched a scheme to get Kelly to open up about what really happened to Christopher Reagan. So they found her, and they started watching her, watching every move she made. And they observed that she frequently visited this park, and she would sit by this certain tree. So Ogden decides that he's gonna mess with her a little, and he goes to this tree and he carves "Chris is here" in hopes of scaring Kelly into believing that Chris was communicating with her from beyond the grave. Ogden said after this he saw Kelly running through the woods, and then all of a sudden this truck backs out and she takes off like a bat out of hell. And that is the night that she decided to tell him everything. They actually got a phone call from Kelly, and she admitted for the first time that Chris had been murdered. She initially claimed that Jason had shot and killed Chris and forced her to remove the bullet from Chris's skull and then dismember his body. Kelly told Ogden that she was a victim of the situation, but police didn't believe that she was being completely truthful about what happened. Frizzo said that with Kelly, it was like lie, 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 truth, lie, 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 half-truth. You gotta kind of figure it out. So police repeatedly interviewed Kelly Cochran, and they just thought that she was just about to crack. But in late April of 2016, she texted detectives, whatever. She was on the West Coast, living on the lam, she said. So now she's a suspect in 2 deaths, both with Iron River and the Hobart Police Department, and they issue warrants for her arrest. Detectives repeatedly texted her, hoping that she would check her phone and they could get a GPS reading on her. Eventually, they track her to a cousin's home in Kentucky, and she is arrested on April 28th, 2016. In custody, she just she sings like a bird. She tells them everything Kelly's found, though, was a skull with a bullet hole in it. The dental records matched Chris Reagan's. According to court records, she told the detectives that her affair with Chris Reagan was the only good thing she had in her life. And after his murder, she was furious with Jason, and she decided that she was going to murder him. It was revenge, she said. I evened the score. Kelly Cochran pled not guilty to Christopher Reagan's murder. At the trial, her defense attorney argued that Jason had acted alone because he was jealous and angry that his wife was involved with another man. Kelly testified about the abuse claims that she suffered in her marriage, and the prosecution challenged these abuse claims against Jason, saying there was no evidence of this. After 3 hours of deliberation, they found Kelly guilty on all charges, including first-degree premeditated murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In a separate case, she was sentenced to an additional 65 years for the murder of for the murder of Jason. I keep mixing them up. So, there was a rumor that was going around about this case, and I almost didn't include it because I was like, ugh. But apparently, neighbors of the Cochrans claim that shortly after Chris disappeared, they heard the couple using power tools in the middle of the night, and then they were later invited over for a barbecue where lots of meat was served. Yeah, Frizzo said that this was just a theory that the neighbors came up with on their own, not something that the police ever brought into the case. Kelly Cochran's brother told investigators that Kelly said there were more victims, but there's no evidence to support this. In an interview with 2020, Kelly denied that she killed anybody. She denied serving her neighbors human remains. She now claims yet another version of Chris's murder, saying that she was tied up as her husband killed Chris and cut him up in front of her. Frizzo said that this was the first that she was hearing of Kelly ever being tied up. She said this is a game, and she's going to continue this game for as long as she can. So, this case is freaking twisted, y'all. I can't. So, okay. I understand being childhood sweethearts and getting married. He's injured. You're suddenly responsible for all of the things. Like, he can't do the things that he used to do with you. He's not your provider, your supporter, whatever. You're feeling overwhelmed. You meet this guy at your new job, and despite your age difference, you get along. You're like the same type of person. You like the same things, etc. Okay. What kind of couple makes a pact that if they ever cheat on the other one, like, okay, Kelly and Jason made a pact that if one of them cheated, the other one would get to kill the person they cheated with. Who does that? I'm telling you right now that there are times when if I caught Sean cheating, I might be like, okay, bye. Because every couple gets frustrated with the other person. I totally understand that. But we've never made any type of pact like Darius was the only one in her life that made her happy. Do I think, because they were at her house, like, getting it on, apparently. So, obviously, you're not trying to hide anything from Jason. And poor Jason is just, well, I say poor Jason, but I'm sure he's not poor Jason. Well, he's deceased now, so poor Jason didn't want his wife to sleep with other people, but realized that they were high school sweethearts, that maybe she just needed to sow her wild oats, get it out of her system, and maybe they would end up better for it in the end, realizing that they just loved each other and didn't want anyone else, if that makes sense. However, this case just got super, super twisted, and the fact that Kelly evaded police for so long, and basically led them on this huge cat and mouse, like, why is she texting detectives? Granted, it let them find her, but she gets interviewed, she sings like a bird, she's still not, I don't know, it just, to me, is bananas. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here today and enjoying my videos. Please leave a like or a comment and subscribe if you're not. It really does help other people find my channel. I would really like to get to 7,000 subscribers before the end of this year. I feel like I've been stuck at 65 for so long, because I definitely have not been posting 3 times a week like I used to. Let me know your case suggestions